Well, let's talk about Channel 4, the fourth channel, which, when I remember when it launched, we used to have a TV that had 4 channel selector buttons on it. You might remember such devices in the days before even remote controls. 4 clicky, punchy buttons that you actually pressed. It's true, it is. 4 buttons, BBC 1, BBC 2, ITV 1, and the 4th button had ITV 2 written on it, because the expectation was at some point there would be a second ITV channel along with the second BBC channel. What of course happened was that Channel 4 was invented, and it became the channel that you got when you pressed the ITV2 button on your 4-button television. Producer Sarah thinks that I'm talking as if I'm a hologram that's come to life from the 17th century. But it's true. Channel 4 has only been around since 1982, and it is owned by the government. The government seeks perhaps to change that arrangement. Martin Campbell is a media advisor. Sorry, Martin, former chief advisor as well to the broadcast regulator Ofcom. Martin, thank you for your time. The government is to launch this consultation into the privatisation of Channel 4. I bet the vast majority of people would, however, have assumed that Channel 4 is already a private company, but it is not, is it?
No, it isn't. It's government owned. And it's commercially funded. It's a strange one. I don't know of any other country that does that. But clearly, at the moment, the government doesn't seem to like it. I feel a bit sorry for it because, its remit is to be diverse, alternative, and challenging, and do what all the other major channels wouldn't do. And of course, they wouldn't do them because they wouldn't get the audiences. So it's going to be forever niche. And if the government doesn't understand that, then they might as well privatise it. But I just feel sorry for them because actually there's no big problem around Channel 4 apart from the fact that it does upset quite a lot of people with its sort of woke agenda.
Well, it's been upsetting people since day one to a greater or lesser extent, and you might reasonably argue that's part of its job. It does, of course, have a public service remit, which is not connected to its nationalised status. The public service remit also extends to ITV and I think Channel 5 as well, which is one of the reasons why they occupy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the top 5 positions on Freeview and electronic guides. How important is that public service remit that Channel 4 has, and do you think that would be imperilled were it to be privatised?
Oh, yes, I'd imagine it would be, because if you look at that remit, it has to be alternative, it has to be different, so of course it's going to upset people. I mean, it doesn't help when they have a head of news who makes speeches about the Prime Minister being a known liar. I mean, I don't think that...
Isn't that just a statement of fact, though? Well, it is a statement of fact. I mean, he's demonstrably lied, and arguably for a head of news to say something that's true ought not to be terribly controversial.
Yeah, whether heads of news at Channel 4 should be standing up and saying that in the context that it was said, it's another thing.
But it was true, though, what he said. Without sort of going over that ground too much, the head of news at Channel 4 said a thing that was true, which is that the Prime Minister is a known liar.
Oh, sure, but what I'm saying is that's not going to endear itself to the government. That's the point.
Well, no, but do we want a broadcaster that is scared to say things which are demonstrably true for fear of upsetting its patrons?
This is the difficulty. I mean, you've got Ofcom also this week coming out looking at how Channel 4 have done over the past year. And if you're going to be alternative, you're going to upset people. And then what they're saying is, they need to build the younger audience on Channel 4. Well, Channel 4 is 40 years old almost now, and maybe it was of its time. But, I mean, they've built up a younger audience from the sort of 16 to 34s, but the under-16s are not being well catered for. Well, they're not going to be well catered for under this remit. So I say it's all a little bit of a mess, really. I think they should have looked at Channel 4 and had sensible plans for it earlier on, because, I fear that it will be privatised, in which case we'll just have another channel.
Yeah.
Or they accept what they do and upset people.
It has a wide range of programming for a channel that went on to upset the establishment and indeed the moral majority in the Mary Whitehouse Brigade as much as it did in its early years. Mm-hmm. It is striking that the first programme it ever broadcast, which is still on the channel, was Countdown, which is about as inoffensive and unchallenging a programme as one could imagine.
Well, I don't know. Some of those words are a bit... Yeah, no, you're right. And, and they did Bake Off and got an audience of 12 million.
Yeah, extraordinary.
While I don't particularly like the approach of Channel 4, and as a journalist, I sometimes wince at the way that Channel 4 News presents itself. And then it will excite me because they've done something really good, and then they do something really strange. But again, maybe part of it's remit.
I'm going to be confessional at this point, Martin, and take myself back to when I was 9 years of age in 1982 in the Highlands, being something of a media nerd, very excited about the forthcoming launch of Channel 4, but unable to see it, because you'll recall perhaps it wasn't rolled out to the entirety of the country in one go. Some transmitters weren't switched on for a year, 2 years. I think we got it in late 83 or early 84, but I still wrote a letter excitedly to the then chairman of Channel 4, Jeremy Irons, I think, possibly, wishing the channel all the best and looking forward. I can hear you laughing, and rightly so. And talking of Countdown, I was nearly on it. I auditioned as one of those really irritating 12-year-olds, and thankfully I did not succeed, because that videotape would presumably still exist if I had.
Well, I'm sure now you've said that, someone will be delving into the back of an old drawer somewhere.
Yes. Again, I think that speaks to the breadth of what the channel does. And maybe to go back to where we came in on this conversation, lack of understanding about that public service remit and the fact that it's currently a nationalised entity. Does Channel 4, do you think, need to make more of a case for itself about what it does and what it can do?
Yes, I do, and that's actually part of what's going on with Ofcom at the moment. They have written to Ofcom to say what their plans are for the next year and how they think they've performed over the past year. And Ofcom then publish their ideas of how they think that they've performed and what they think of their forthcoming plans. But of course, in the situation that we're in, it's been very difficult, because I think in a couple of months in 2020, April and May, I think possibly, there was something like a 50% drop in ad revenue because of the COVID crisis. So it's been a difficult time to work out. Now is not a good time to say, well, this is Channel 4 as it should be, because they have struggled, and of course they don't produce programmes themselves. They buy them all in.
Indeed. In fact, I think even Channel 4 News is made by ITN, isn't it? It's not.
Yes, I believe it is, yeah.
You'll have spotted my deliberate mistake. Jeremy Isaacs rather than Jeremy Irons. Yes. was the executive to whom I wrote that letter. Apologies if anyone knows Jeremy Irons is rather confused by what I said a few moments ago.
Played by Jeremy Irons.
Perhaps, yes, that would be the way to fix this. What do you think the outcome of this will be? Governments launch consultations all the time, generally, often at least, with the intention of getting the result that they want. What do you think is going to happen here?
I think what they'll do is when David Cameron said that Ofcom was going to be on the top of the bonfire of regulators, and then he had a real problem with some of the music and rap content that went on, he needed Ofcom as a sort of whipping boy between him and the viewers. And I think in a way the government will use Ofcom again and say, look, we'll get Ofcom and Channel 4 to talk to each other about how this is going, because we don't quite like the direction of it. So I think it will be a little bit of a fudge, because I think it would be a little bit unfair to pull out all the wires from Channel 4 at this present moment, because as I said at the outset, there is no great problem at Channel 4, apart from the fact that clearly Oliver Dowden and the Culture Minister John Whittingdale, I think, are both pro-selling the channel. But you then have to change the remit, because no one's going to buy that remit.
What's it worth, do we know? If it were to be sold, how much would the Treasury raise?
The tag on it at the moment is £1 billion. There is talk that there could be a merger with ITV. Yeah. But if I was an ITV shareholder, I wouldn't be particularly happy with that at the moment. So I think the very least that will happen, Darren, is that the remit will be looked at, because they're competing. All four competes very well in the digital world, but the remit and setup of Channel 4 really hasn't kept up with the digital pace. So I think that the first thing they'll do is get Ofcom and Channel 4 to take the drains up on the remit.
Martin, thank you very much. Martin Campbell, media advisor, former chief advisor to the broadcast regulator Ofcom, joining me this morning. The government then launching that consultation into the privatisation of Channel 4.